She made $1 million by 39. She drives a Honda Accord, orders water when she goes out to dinner, and does not pay for her kids' college. 5 kids. That's not a headline about being cheap. It's a headline about being intentional, about understanding that the biggest threat to generational wealth isn't a bad investment. It's a kid who has never taught how to handle one. Dr. Julia Myers is back for part 2. And today we're getting practical. What financial literacy looks like inside a family that actually has money. Let's go. If you didn't catch part 1, go back and listen first. I'll put it in the notes. We covered Julia's origin story, her path from clinical pharmacist to medically retired to financially free at 40, and how generational wisdom framework was born from watching families build real wealth and then watch it vanish in a single generation. Since then, Julia has delivered her TED Talk Lakeshore Drive on January 30th and got a standing ovation for a 10-minute talk about the day her right eye stopped working and her career ended. This video isn't even live yet, and she's already building the launch team to take it to 1 million views. That's the kind of practitioner she is. She's a doctor of pharmacy with an MBA, a Business Insider feature, a mom of 5, and the founder of a framework that's changing how wealthy families talk to each other about money. Today, we go deeper, tools, real family scenarios, and conversations parents avoid having until it's too late. Part 1 is foundation. Part 2 is functional. Dr. Julia Myers, welcome back to Real Talk with Katie Kim.
I am so excited to be here, and thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to share what I call my greatest resource, my time, with you. And if you are listening, this is an episode where you might want to take notes. You might want to pause. You might want to make yourself some voice notes, whatever it is, because we are going to give you not just the ideas of, oh, that would be nice and maybe someday, but today we are going to get practical, because that's what we need in life, is the 2-for-1 wins. That's what we need as parents. We can't go in and, add more things to our schedule. We already have to use what we have. And that's what you're doing with your time, your most valuable resource. Thanks for sharing it with us. And thank you, Katie, for having me back again.
I'm so excited. Thank you. And as you mentioned, is you might want to I even have a notepad here. I know I'm taking notes, and I'm still recording this, and we're going to relaunch it because you drop so many gems of wisdom. And I love it because it's helped me have those conversations with my kids, even talking about the family constitution. So really want to talk and tee it up of how do we step in to these conversations?
Oh, I think it starts with giving yourself grace, permission, and we've just turned on the lights. So you know how sometimes when you turn on the lights, there's that initial shock of hold on, wait a minute, is this the real world? And yes, it is, because you as the parent have somehow magically transitioned to now being the strongest financial influence in your kiddo's life. If we remember when we were kids, the first memories of money came from most likely our nuclear family. You're not responsible for how that affected you. You're not responsible for the beliefs that maybe you carried with you. I like to call it in a separate exercise as the belief backpack. Your parents packed it for you. Now that you're the parent, you get to decide in your own backpack at this feeling of weight. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. This weight that is all these pressures you're feeling about money. Some might serve you. Let's keep them in there. And some you need to take out. So when it comes to talking to kids about money, you by default are packing their backpack, whether you talk to them or you don't, whether you avoid it or you engage. Either way, it is getting packed. And in my world, the reason that this is so essential, that once we turn on the lights, we can do something about it. And now that you have this awareness that you are the most responsible person for their financial beliefs while they're still living with you at home, that makes it essential that you realize they're learning it from somewhere. Do you want them learning it from the world, from schools, pastors, coaches, whoever's in their life is going to be giving them influences? But right now, you as the parent have the strongest influence. So that's why this conversation is so, so important.
I love it. I love it. And I love the backpack analogy because there are a lot of women building their financial education as they go, right? They came from a scarcity mindset or a scarcity household, or that was their, as you termed, their money story. And how do you walk that line of not passing down that scarcity mindset, but also not creating, as we mentioned last time, the entitlement like on the other side, and that fine line that we have to walk? Or we get to walk. I'm going to say we get to walk.
Such a great question. And everyone's answer looks a little bit different in the way that if you had asked me when your baby's born, what's the best way to survive a newborn? You could go in so many different directions. And
Yeah.
so I think that question is a question that we want to answer for ourselves first, kind of put on our own oxygen mask of what are the stories that I want to tell?
Yes.
Because there might be some stories that are big T trauma or it's completely just, blocked out of our mind. Let's start with what feels safe, what feels curious, what feels interesting. What kid doesn't want to hear a story? Tell me about a time when. And I like to say that lectures have like right answers and wrong answers. You're told how to do something and how not to do something. Do not go into lecture mode by default. If you find yourself when we're having these money conversations going down the road, I had a friend yesterday tell me, he's like, my nickname was Lecture Dad. Whenever that voice came out, whenever I pulled out the notebook that was the budget or the whatever, if that's you, give yourself the grace to say, I've turned on the lights. I want to do it differently. Let's reframe the lecture into a story. A story has a lesson. Stories also always have bad guys, good guys, dumb decisions, smart decisions, all the things. If we can normalize that interacting with money is just a life skill, like spending time, like, screen time, make it relatable to them, but also it's okay to be vulnerable without airing all the dirty laundry, all the zeros in the net worth. Don't need to come out at first. Start with your own level of comfort and know your personality. Many people that are oversharers will just jump right in and be like, here's our assets and here's everything. So whatever your tendency is, just know that you want to lean on the other edge of that because you can always share more details. Or the flip side would be if you were like, we don't talk about money, we don't talk about politics, we don't talk about religion, we don't talk other than how was your day at the dinner table, this is going to feel uncomfortable. It's okay to lean in because if you don't, the world is teaching them anyway. It's like sexual education. If you don't address it, and you can't just talk about it one time, right? You can't just check the box and be like, oh, we had the talk.
Yeah.
But you do have to remember that things are hitting our kids from different angles we don't even know that they're seeing and at an earlier and earlier age.
Yeah.
If 16 is the first time they are learning about how taxes work and how to fill out a pay stub form, that's fine. But I want you to be having those conversations with them much, much earlier, would be a practical example. There's not a magic age. There's not a magic conversation. It's knowing your personality. Where do you tend to fall? Let's push it just a little bit to that edge of discomfort and then invite the kids into the story. And a safe answer is always, that's a really good question. And I want to give you the best answer I can. Let me get back with you.
Yes.
It's okay to say, I don't know, and I'll get back with you. It's okay to say, let me tell you about a time. It's also okay to say, this is a conversation that stays in our home, or this is a conversation that stays at our table, or whatever your boundaries are, so that you can set the expectation to say, we're going to treat you like an adult, and then you're going to have to reciprocate that trust as we go down these paths of some pretty big, pieces of information. It doesn't have meaning unless we as the parent kind of use it as a weapon, or we are able to say, hey, it's just a thing. We all have time that we spend. We all know what it's like to feel late or to be early. If we can relate it to something they can identify with, like time, it kind of starts to be parallel. You start talking about time when they're 2 and 3 years old. Put your shoes on. Let's go. Put your money in the savings account. Okay, here's where we're at. Little baby steps. Love you, Dave Ramsey. We've got to be able to start those conversations and not feel surprised when at 18, they get credit card applications in the mail. They're at the dentist and you can't access their information anymore. And they signed up for services you would have never paid for. Whatever it is, I think is really important to just realize the world treats them magically different at 16 when they drive, at 18, at 21, and then somehow at 25 when they can actually rent a car. But that's for another day. So that is what I would say is just the foundation of wherever you are. It's never too late to start, but you turned on the lights and you can't turn them off now. Let's go.
Let's go. So you start the conversation, and I'm slowing down to speed up, which I often do. That is, I just had a pod call today, and I can't go into the details because it's very confidential. But one of my pod members was like, I started the family meeting, right? And I'm like, great. And it was let's like do the data checkpoints, right? And we kind of got cut on short time. And I did that same thing too, right? Where we first do it, we didn't show them the numbers first, but we kind of went through like those check boxes of like, this is what we want to structure this meeting. And then I realized as we had the meeting more often, and I think I may have mentioned this on our first episode, where we started to just make structure in the conversation, but not have it be a rigid agenda. And so we came up with the like start, stop, more, less, where it's like those four things. Like, what do you want to start seeing, in the family environment? What do you want to stop seeing? Like, stop getting me, here, whatever. And then what do I want more of? Usually that's food. The boys are like, we want more of this option or this option. And we want less of screen time restrictions is usually the one that comes up. So it is a framework, but I'd love to know like how, when you guide families to sit down and start these meetings or start a family constitution, as you mentioned, like don't always start with like, here's the P&L, here's your PFS, boom, boom, boom. That's how we started, to be honest. Like I said, my kids all have their PFS because I thought that's where we started the money conversation. And so I love your lens of like, meet them where they're at and then like give them the stories that they can relate to. So how do you step into something like that?
I love that. And I want to pause for those acronyms. P&L meaning profit and loss. PFS, yes. Personal financial statement. Ramit Sethi calls it the conscious spending plan. Different people have different acronyms, but it's basically the B word, the budget, like the numbers, the commas, the black and the white. And so whatever your acronym is, that is what those were for. When I work with families, there's kind of 3 steps to a process. I love a great framework. When I'm just starting, it is a 10-minute kind of quick money patterns assessment. And I like to use the words that are, what are your values? If someone looked at your family right now, what would be the words, adjectives, adverbs? Can you tell it's like finals season around here in the spring? All the kids and the ACT words are coming out. But what are the words you'd use to describe your family right now? Or what would other people use? Because many times what you'd say about yourself isn't always what the world sees. And I think that in itself is its own disconnection and bridge to cross. However, it's really interesting when you have husband and wife, single parents. I did an engaged couples one, what their similarities are of what they think their family values are and what's different. And then I get into feeling words. So similar to our practice when we do our quarterly review of our one sheets or our accountability plans, I like to say, what do you want your home to feel like? What do you want your relationship with your adult kids, even if you don't have kids, imagine what does that feel like? And then at the end, what have you already tried that didn't work and why? Because many of us don't believe that this kind of work can actually make a difference. How many of us have sat in those board meetings at our corporations or wherever? What's our mission statement? We're going on a strategic retreat. And oh my goodness, did we talk about talking and never actually make traction? So I want to know with the families I work with in step 1, what are your money patterns that I can kind of pick up? And then I use that to facilitate a family vision experience. Loved how you use the word lens. I have lots of visual puns, right? Kind of referencey. And that is the experience where we really talk about their influences, their results as it relates to the words they chose for their values. And then we eliminate, we go from maybe it was 18 they gave me to 8 to 4, and we try to land on 3. What are your family values that most reflect where you are right now? So, for an example, my family is love, learning, and experiences. And so, what we do as we build our family constitution, similar to the US Constitution, that says, we the people, I say, we the Myers family are about love, learning, and experiences. We live this out by, and then that gets to the next part of this experience. How do I know? Show me your budget, show me your schedule, show me your screen time. And I can tell you, or we can kind of create, oh, that's a routine or a rhythm I really like, because that supports us doing experiences. So my example is we don't really eat out when we're home. We make our own lunches or on breakfast, whatever. We might order some pizza on Friday night, but we're not going out to eat. And can we afford it? Absolutely. But instead, we changed it to say we value the experiences. So when we do go out to eat, when we're traveling, we're trying an appetizer. We're trying something crazy on the menu that no one's ever heard of. And even if nobody does anything other than taste it, that's an experience.
Mm.
And dessert. Oh my goodness. It also translates to way less money fights over time that kids just know, oh yeah, we just don't ask to go here, there, everywhere, because they kind of know when we get to be on those travel trips, that's the experience we're investing in. So that would be that second part. So you have the principles,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the practices or kind of the articles of the US Constitution. If you're going through that in your elementary school, I've, yes, been through it 5 times, and each time I learn a little something new and I forget a little something more. And then finally, thank goodness the US Constitution gave us women amendments so we can vote and we can do all these things. I also think it's important that a constitution for our family needs to have some level of like preservation to it. And if we say we are going to take an annual trip every year, okay, what do you do when they go away for a summer internship? What do you do when they are having a +1 and they want to now bring the +1 on the family vacation? So having the ability to have amendments within your family constitution makes it so that you are able to revisit and then use it not as a weapon, but as a tool, as a lens to say, how do we make decisions as a family? What do we say yes to? Is it in service of love, learning, and experiences? Insert value A, B, or C. And if it's not, or it's 2 great choices, you then can say, me, mom, isn't the bad guy for saying, no, we're not going out to eat. Yeah. We can then say, remember that family constitution we all agreed on, we all guided those decisions around what we value. Mm-hmm. I'm still the bad guy, right? And your teens will still roll their eyes no matter what, whether you have a constitution or not. It takes the pressure off of you as the parent of saying the same thing over and over and say, remember, in our family, this is what we're about. So that is step 2. That's kind of your family constitution. I'll pause there before we get to step 3.
So is step 3 still building out the family constitution, or is
step 3 is now you're having these cadences of a family meeting?
Okay, so I have a question.
Family constitution's like this experience.
Yeah.
Or if you've never had like a vision setting event before, it's so much fun. But if you have had a vision setting event or like a retreat, usually in January, how often have you done it with the most important person in your life?
That is a great question of where my mind was going when you're saying that. I'm like, how many times do we look at our business or investments or the check the box criteria to what we think wealth is, right? But yet we don't bring the people we promise our life to into those conversations and or share some of that data or knowledge or insight. And I love how you walk through creating that family constitution, because that is on our list to get done. And we also had a shift we had a change of seasons. Hockey season finally ended, knock on wood, it doesn't really ever end, but like it paused. Let me just put that. And lacrosse kicked out. well, different practice schedules, different timing. And so we got away from our family meeting, and literally I couldn't have timed it better. This past week, both my kids, separate instances, said, "Hey, when are we having our family meeting again? I got some things we need to discuss." I was like, okay, obviously some stuff is happening we need to talk about. And I love, because they've decided and accepted to go to prep school in the fall. And now people are like, "Oh, you're going to be empty nesters." I am. And I'm excited and scared and sad. There's all the emotions, right? But I also look, when my mom was asking me, "Well, like, you're there, these are critical years." And I said, "Well, if I haven't given them a good base foundation, this point in time, I'm really a consultant to them when they come into their high school years." And so it's giving me that accountability to get back on track right before they leave. And even after they leave, how are we still having these meetings? How are we still touching base, right? Because I look at the other side of my family, and my mother, no surprise, she's older than me, right? So she's at a different point in her life. And how are we looking at, what we go to is, how are we looking at transitioning that wealth and that generational wisdom that's gone to build that up, being in alignment with like my money story, my family's, and our family constitution, and what we want to do. And I think it's it's such guidance of the timing of all this coming in. Selfishly for me, I know listeners, you're getting something out of it too, but like for me, to sit down with you again and to say, okay, I got mom retiring, right? Mom's retired, but like we're looking at trust and setting it up, and it's my sister and I, and how do we organize it, and what do we do, and what does my mom want to give to the grandkids and their great grandkids. And I think in one of the books, as reference, I have to go back and I'll look at it. I'll put it in the show notes, but it was like generational wealth. I think Tracy actually mentioned it. In the Bible, it says being able to give multiple generations. That's like the true gift, to keep giving. And I love it because these systems and this constitution, and I'm bringing it back to the US Constitution, as you said, we've had it for years, right? We've had it for hundreds of years. And so how do we keep our generational wealth in our family going for hundreds of years, right? And starting with that Constitution is amazing. I want you to hold me accountable. I'm going to have it done by, I'm going to say, the end of May. We're going to start the first round, the first draft. And then I love the permission for amendments, right? Because we gotta adjust it. And how often, before we get to the next step, how often do you revisit the Constitution itself?
Ooh, great question. And my favorite way to do it, I think we did it before it was cool. So at the end of the year, everybody looks forward to getting what from Spotify? Spotify Wrapped. Okay. What did you listen to? What did you watch? What were your highlights? And now every company has really jumped on this train. But in our family, we've done that for several years, that if you had a device and you took pictures, you got to pick your 10 highlight moments. And you then had a little bit of independence, even if you were young and really cute and we kind of helped you with it. Or the really big teenagers are like, I don't want to have to do this. But now they look forward to it, just like your kids look forward to a family meeting. We revisit it because we say, how do we know we're living in alignment with what we value? Show me, don't tell me.
Ooh.
And that is a highlight reel that they each get to share and say, this is what love meant to me this year. This is what learning was about this year. And it was so hard to not lose my Duolingo streak, or it was so hard to whatever it was, or this experience. Oh my goodness. Do you guys remember when we caught that fish and then we dissected it because we were learning about the organs? And then, do you remember this was the year we didn't go on that family float trip we've always gone on? And I missed that picture, so I'm showing you a black screen so that we can remember to do it next year. I'm telling you, careful what we wish for as parents. The kids are not just watching, they're learning. Yeah. And they are listening, and they are sponges. I love what you said about those foundational years. Yeah. That's a tradition you could start, that no matter where they are, they're always coming back to, they're part of this family no matter what. Especially that you're taking on that role of consultant and mentor and less direct parent influence. Yeah. They're still going to say, I love that tradition, or please don't ever make us wear matching shirts again, or whatever it was. Like that to me is what builds that trust. And that's where we came up with the word trust. Yeah. Is I trust you to execute upon these wishes. It was never meant to be a black secret box that you unlock upon your passing that is the magic reading of the will and everyone's surprised and irritated or emotional or whatever. You can't have a trust without trust.
I love that. Love that. Okay, so
Highlight reel is what we do as a family. And then we always have a tradition of New Year's Day, we pick the trip where we're going and we book something related to whatever that activity is. So whether it's the flights or the hotels, I love a good deal. So I'm not booking the whole thing on January 1st, but that tradition so that everybody knows and has the big rocks in their calendar going into whatever that season is for us for the next year. So we've got one in all the levels, elementary, middle, high school, college, and grad school. And so this year's trip looks like a domestic family camp away in kind of the Pigeon Forge, Smoky Mountain area where people can come and go as they need to. And I'm so excited about it.
That's awesome. I love a good camping trip. Like I just get me in nature and all the feels. I love that. I'm gonna swipe that. I like the highlight reel. That is so fun. And it lets them create it however they can, right? How, like you said, you may help them a little bit, or they may have it, or they may groan. We're getting into the groan phase, which I'm like, but when the boys own the deliverable, I find that there's more joy in how it comes out. And so I love you sharing that you have a kid almost in every single like phase of life of growing up. And so you get the family constitution done. It's set. We're not checking a box, guys. I'm gonna say it's a living document. That's what we usually say when we're changing documents. And then how do we flow to the next step?
The next step then becomes when we are reviewing it, something's going to bubble up, right? Mm-hmm. Something is going to demand our resources, time, money, attention in different ways. And something's going to bubble up and cause us to have to make decisions that we are not 100% either confident in, or we're unsure about, or we have to make a complete life change. So for me, it was all of a sudden I didn't have my traditional W-2 income anymore. Nobody wants a one-eyed pharmacist is the joke, or one that isn't exact with the dollars and the cents when you're looking at giant spreadsheets. So what was I going to do? And so that pivot then meant that we leaned into real estate and depreciation. And we used that value of learning to then kind of say, all right, how much do we want to invest in learning? I've already got lots of paper degrees, but what do I do over here? And how do you compare and contrast those decisions? Usually around some sort of a milestone. So many families I work with are looking at those big milestones or those transitions. So if your kids aren't in school yet, your constitution probably doesn't change a whole lot based on their input. When they get into kind of elementary school, you might say, we try something and we don't quit early, or we do this, but we don't do that. But then when they get to middle school, they really start having their kind of own opinion of, I want to do this competitive sport versus that one. Or I really want to get into it's esports. Like I've got two that love chess and are like so competitive with chess. But when they didn't have a competition at the state level this year, they said, I'm not doing chess because there's no competition, because that's what they valued. It wasn't that, they don't love it anymore. They're just doing it in different ways. Mm-hmm. So I say when there's a milestone that allows us to really challenge, should we be thinking about this differently? Is this more of a like accessory to our family, kind of the flair, or is this like a core part that we need to figure out? And I like to say the milestones might be driving. What does it look like to talk about those transitions of who's paying for what, when and why, going off to school, what's the budget, who's paying for what, who gets which credit card, which debit card, whatever, college, weddings, like plus ones, in-laws. And then what about, like you said, you're in the sandwich generation like I am, where parents are still living, talking about this wealth transfer. What does that look like? How do you have those conversations? What are those stories while they're still physical and able? And so I like to say that often a milestone hits us before we hit the milestone. As parents, we want to slow down. As parents, we're like, when it gets quieter. Y'all, we are in the spring season of graduation, and then we go right into summer vacation, and then we go right to back to school, and then we go right to the holidays. And guess what? It's a year later, and that constitution might not have even been touched until there's a milestone that moves us to take action and have those conversations. So maintenance, like you said, with those check-ins, call it a family meeting, call it a, whatever you want to label it.
Mm-hmm.
The meaning is what it's all about. But then when you get that milestone and you've got to make those tough decisions, having a place to talk about it is very helpful. Not when you're hungry or tired or stressed, right? Don't in the moment, just like any financial wisdom that people talk about is don't talk about your money when you're stressed. Don't go shopping when you're hungry. All the basics still apply. Don't change your constitution when you're in the middle of a crisis. Reference it and say, how can this guide us going forward?
I love that. I love that. And you haven't, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun. So I love those because you talk about like the discernment quadrant. Okay. Am I jumping ahead too much?
No, this is perfect. That's
okay.
perfect.
So
Yes.
I want you to walk us through that because like what are the 4 quadrants and how does a family use it? And then I also want to know what's the quadrant most families avoid spending time in it?
Ooh, okay. So what you're talking about, Katie, is the third and final step.
Okay.
So many times parents are able to say, this is what I need for right now. I've got a constitution. I'm going to go back to kind of daily life and I'll reach back out when or if something changes. If you're hitting that milestone or you're hitting this friction point that you're like, I think I want some extra support, this is what I call the very important purpose day, where we dive into one of my 7 pillars. One of them is kind of financial literacy. How do we like break it down and get all the accounts set up like an action day? And if you're noticing a trend, these are the containers. Because Katie, you said, hold me accountable. I want to get this done by. I just put one date on your calendar and it gets done.
Mm-hmm.
And you could be sure that it is done. And so sometimes that's just that permission to put it on there and everybody shows up and it's just like, this feels great. So in a day, whatever that looks like, virtually or in person, we will walk through the 7 steps of what I call my generational wisdom playbook. It's not a how-to guide, but think of like when you are in the NBA playoffs right now. Can you tell who I am rooting for? OKC. So the playbook, what do you do at each of those steps or places? And then the discernment quadrant comes into step, I think it's 5, where we talk about financial privilege.
Ooh.
We're going to label it just like it is. We're going to say that if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have more tech on you than 99% of the world. That's privilege. And if we avoid it or just pretend it doesn't exist, or we say, oh, we're not wealthy, we're not like those people, we're doing our kids a disservice. Because with calling it privilege, you now are able to just shift the mindset from scarcity. How can your brain say that I have such blessings, I have such privilege, I have such a head start, whether it's the color of your skin, the gender you were born, the city, the community, the family you were born into? You can't control that. But you can embrace it and say, that was given to me for a divine purpose for good. How do I use that to the best of my ability? Not to my advantage, right? A mentor of mine says, take your strengths and use it and exploit it in the service of others. And so I love that quote. So I think it's important that we say financial privilege and realize a lot of what we think about is a first world problem. And it doesn't make it any less real. Our brain feels the stress and the pressure just like we don't have enough food or we don't have shelter or we don't have physical safety. Our brain doesn't know the difference. And so that's why we talk about earlier in the work, the influences that shape the behaviors that then shape your thoughts and then your actions. The discernment quadrant is a tool that I've created to basically say, when you're coming from something with a lens of privilege, it all comes down to motivation.
Ooh.
What is your motivating factor when making this decision? So we have our constitution that's kind of our like compass, right? We go in this direction, but we all know that directional things can be off even with the slightest degree one way or the other. So in a very academic fashion, I created a quadrant. So our horizontal axis is what we do with money. On the far left side, we consume it. We spend it, it goes down, right? And on the far right side, we create it. It grows, it goes up. I can't think of anything else to do with money other than sit right at zero and do nothing with it and put it under the mattress.
Ugh.
Every decision hinges upon, are we spending money or are we creating money? I know it sounds simple, but it is not easy.
Mm-mm.
Because now you have to say, well, what's the motivation? Because many times our brains have said, I'm a saver. I hang out in this quadrant. I'm a spender. I hang out in this quadrant. But their motivations could be driven by completely different things. So we have to insert that vertical axis to the mindset. So we've got our money, the physical thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have our mindset. And at the very bottom is scarcity.
Yeah.
At the very top, abundance.
Love it.
In between, there's enough, there's fine, there's I'm fat and happy, and then there's abundance. And so for each person, your opinions of where you fall with that mindset are going to feel different by nature. Like you can't control what your default is, but you can identify what's one aspirational step up, and then what is that thing that maybe is in my backpack that's holding me back and weighing me down, literally. So those two lines create our 4 quadrants. So which place do you want to start? And then I will make sure that this resource is linked and available, because I love talking discernment, because discernment is a skill. And how we use this is going to be asking yourself, what's the last big thing you did with money? What was your motivation? And if it doesn't just come off the tip of your tongue, like it doesn't for me or pretty much anybody I work with, we're going to now throw it into the quadrant. So do you want to start with a purchase or a investment you've done recently? Or do you want to start with a quadrant and we'll work around?
Oh, this is a good question. My mind like just fired in 20 different directions when you asked that question. Because I literally yesterday night, just got in the mail the title to my car because it is paid off. Like, I mean, I was doing that. I was like, yeah. And I was like, this is my first car I've ever had that's completely paid off. Now I've had cars, obviously, but like paid off's a big deal, right? And like how much money does that come back into my pocketbook? So that's like my most recent would like money milestone, not so much decision, but milestone would be that. And I was like, this is amazing. And then I just went to like, that comes like, that's now a plus in our budget. Right. But when you started asking the question, my guilty pleasure, I always say that everybody has one thing in their life that they can spend an insane amount of money on and justify it all day long. Like it is, some people it's hunting, they can buy all these guns. Some people it's, whatever. Hockey equipment. Oh my gosh. I feel like that's like a second investment. And for me, it's experiences. Like I don't need the shiny object. Like, I have a beautiful wedding ring, but I wear this almost all the time. And I just want experience. I just want to value, like you said, the most precious resource I have is my time and my mind, my resources. Let me just put it that way. And so to me, investing and spending time with you, I know everybody's like, when's the last time I spent time with Katie? But like, is my love language to you. Like if I'm, it's that, right? That's it. So to me, when you said experience, I'm like, yes. And I think of one of the milestones that I had financially last year was I invited my nieces and nephews on a vacation. And I said, we're going to pay for the house. We're going to rent a house or pay for the house. We're going to pay for at least like the groceries, right? We're going to make breakfast every day. We'd like to have dinner with you, but like do whatever you want. Like we're going to do this. And we mapped out exactly what we're going to do. And if like, you want to come along with us, great. Great. Like I want you to enjoy this. And it was, not everybody came, right? Because there's like, oh, I don't know. But we did it enough time where it's like, ask grandma for the flight. Right. And then everything's kind of taken care of. And it was a financially, beneficial trip. And I loved, my heart was so full, all the time I spent with my nieces and nephews and their kids. And just that's it. So it's obviously I'm passionate about it because I just spent like 5 minutes explaining what it was. But
I love that. And for you listening, what is that thing that lights you up? How often have we enjoyed the wealth we've built and enjoyed our spending with intention.
Yes.
I love that. So I would say that falls in what I would call the consumption and an abundance quadrant. You spent money. You
Yeah.
didn't make money doing that. You weren't upcharging them for this experience, or you weren't asking them for, all the things. And yet you felt comfortable. You were on that quadrant one is what I call it, the abundant consumption, the enjoyment and the alignment where you can buy anything. You just can't buy everything.
Yeah.
And if you're hanging out in that quadrant, that is a very amazing place to be. That is a caution for your kids.
Ooh.
Because your kids aren't inherently going to be able to consume with the same level of enjoyment as you are. When you work hard for something, just like you said, your boys, when they have the ownership in it, it is so much more valuable. So I would compare that to your teenage kiddos. How are they spending their money that brings them enjoyment? And one example that we do in our house, when you turn 8, you have to start paying for birthday presents for your friends.
Ooh, I like
So
that.
every age birthday, and I don't have them all off the top of my head because it changes over the years, but in general, around 8, that is your congrats, you're 1 year older. You now have a little more responsibility. I'm not surprised by the birthday party invitation tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the bounce house or whatever. I'm also not running to the store, buying the gift card, and then shoving it in an envelope and then handing it over and it just sits on the table.
Word. Yep.
That's consumption, but that is a very low level of abundance and enjoyment. It's probably more stressful, actually.
Yeah.
But if the kids have to pay for it, the kids make the card, buy the card, wrap the gift, however well they do that. Bless their hearts. I think that they can now experience that in the same way of consumption with abundance. Not a free for all, but it is a muscle that is practiced. And when you spend your money in a way that lights you up, that is a dopamine hit that no screen can replace.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's a great analogy and a great caution, right? Because I do talk with them about like that trip. I was like, this has been a goal of mine, like, for a long, long time. And to be able to achieve it was a lot. And when you're asking, like, what do our kids spend? Like, I have one kid that does not spend. Like, he is like, everything goes to the bank, 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 bank. I have another one that burns a hole in his pocket, right? Like, the second he gets it, it's got to get out the door. And so we're trying to get the balance, right? But anytime he wants money, he earns it. He comes into, so right now they got an e-bike, which let me tell you how I got tricked on the e-bike. It's in essence a dirt bike that's electric, but it was told to me as a bicycle because there's big hills here. I'm like, you have no idea.
I remember this from our conversation and we're like, that's it, right? We're done. And you're like, no, there's gear, there's swag, there's accessories.
Yes. And now there's lights underneath the e-bike. And last night there was a paint job. And he has not asked for any money to fit this out because I think he also knows I'm not going to pay for that. Right. And so he's doing certain activities to earn that money to get what he wants in there. So there's a lot of pride that's going into that bike right now.
I love that. And that is his own version. And that's our job as parents, is not to pass down our version of the discernment quadrant.
Oh, yeah.
Help them build their own. And so now he can see that that's where he's creating abundance. It's like, I earned this, I did this, I owned this, and I love this.
Yeah.
So I love it. Quadrant 2 would be a question that I get a lot from probably the younger Gen Zers. So the ones just entering the workforce, or they're still maybe in grad school or college, and they're like, what do you need all this money for? That's just capitalistic, right? Or whatever. And what I have found is that there is a joy in playing the game.
Ooh.
And I feel abundance when I am able to create money by solving problems people will pay me for.
I love that.
I want to teach that value to my kids, to feel hungry for the challenge, the stretch, the purpose, the hard results that come, even if it's just compound interest over time.
Yeah.
It's not super fancy. It can be very like steady. It can be your real estate investments. It can be development. It can be whatever it is that is growing. You're investing in, yes, you spend for your education, and that's a whole nother, which side of the equation does your education go on? But in general, that trajectory, that's quadrant 2, that mindset is so incredibly important for our kids to develop,
Oh,
because they then can decide what is a need and what is a want. Abundance doesn't come from enough. Remember, we said fine, fat, and happy. Abundance is I have way more than I will ever need, and I'm still growing so that I can give, so that I can create jobs, so that I can restore communities or whatever.
yeah.
That's the value that comes from quadrant 2. It's
Mm.
not about more for me, because that's consumption over there. It's how do I create within my capacity, my God-given talents, to build and grow more for generations to come.
I love that. I love that.
And then real quickly, below the line, we're hanging out in kind of scarcity. Think of it as imposter syndrome. Think of it as self-doubt. Think of it as just one side of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to feel abundance if you've never felt scarcity. If
Yeah.
you've never felt deprived. You've never felt, oh, I just don't have quite enough. So, bottom left, you're consuming quadrant 3, you're spending money and in scarcity. That is what I call the middle class trap.
Oof.
Have to work because of your payments, and you cannot find this way out. You're not able to enjoy what you have because it's already gone, it's paid to other people, and you are holding on to everything you have, but you're like bill here, bill there. It's all feeling not just out of control, but just never enough.
Yeah.
That's quadrant 3. That's where a lot of what I call that middle class mindset trap is. Your golden handcuffs are there. I could never retire because then I wouldn't have enough. I wouldn't have enough. Well, then you age into quadrant 4. And if you are my age and a millennial and you know DuckTales and Scrooge McDuck, and he swims in his bank of money and being the richest man in the graveyard, that's where you hang out. You just create and create and create, but it is not out of a place of so I can give more, so I can experience more. It is out of a place of I'll never have enough. I don't want the government to have it. I don't want my kids to have it. I just want it all safe and away, and I never want to run out.
It's
If
ugly.
you're operating from an abundance mindset, you just make more.
Yeah.
And I do want to pause that this is coming from a place of privilege. That's why I teach this lesson in privilege. There are real conversations of scarcity, of poverty, of not enough, not knowing where your meals come from, not knowing where your roof will come over your head. And if that is a season, I love you in that season. And I know that there are prayers that are going to be answered for that season.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the listener that is seeing this through a lens of privilege, that is our call to be able to serve those people that might be in need. Anyway, that was my aside. And I think that's so important to call out. Have our kids seen that impact? Have our kids seen what poverty is? Have our kids seen what it means to feel hungry, to feel scared, to not watch on a TV or not fly in on a mission trip and say, oh, that was crazy, and now I'm going to go back home, but actually feel and have empathy and walk where they are?
Mm.
The middle class trap and the Scrooge McDuck, those are created through our upbringing, through our Western culture, through society, through the Joneses or the hashtag Team Jones, whatever it's called now on Instagram. That peer culture is pressure when it comes from the outside. And when you're above that line in your abundance, those influences come from inside and they feel like purpose.
Mm.
That's our job as parents, is to teach our kids how to build that discernment muscle. And that's how I love to teach it, is through that third and final step. We have to go a lot deeper than just, a single 90-minute conversation.
Yeah.
That is how generational wisdom is communicated, is built, is passed on. That's what it's all about. That's our job as parents. And 1 in 4 parents feel confident their kids can handle what is coming to them in adulthood. So not even just they can handle inheritance, but just that they can handle adulting.
Yeah.
1 in 4. I'm on a mission to change that.
Love
And we're
it.
on a mission to make generational wisdom what we want our kids to have. And I just want to say thank you so much for having such an incredibly deep, rich conversation. And what else do you want to know in our time together? Because I'm sure I see you like leaning, like, whoa, what else? We got to do more. So,
Oh, there's so much more, so
you?
much more. And I want to respect your
See.
time because I know it is a blessing to have it. As I mentioned, this is one of my cherished resources. And I know we're coming up on time and you got a books day. So this was a lot. And I know that the mom that's listening, the adult that's listening is taking it all in, absorbing. I'm going to put the link to your TED Talk in there, as well as some of your generational wealth wisdom work. And one last final parting comment, if you can, is for the parent that's listening right now, right? And they know there is a gap. They've built the wealth. They haven't had the conversation. What's the first conversation that they should have tonight? And how should they start it?
Oh, I love that question. And it can go two ways. It can go, let me tell you about a time, and then you, as the parent, share a story. Your first job, your first car, your first paycheck, your first something can have a good lesson to it. It can have I don't remember how much I earned, but I remember when gas was 97 cents a gallon. And now it's this, find something that feels safe, that just feels easy. Because if we are like, we have to talk about the entire thing, it's not going to happen.
No, it's overwhelming.
Flip side would be, I have no capacity for preparation. I have no capacity. My brain is full. I just want to listen. Ask them a question. And one of my favorite ones to ask is, would you rather be rich or wealthy?
Ooh.
That one's a good like teenager age one.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got youngers or littles is what I call it, and even though they're taller than me, sometimes they're still called littles.
Yeah.
Where does money come from and what's it for?
Mm.
Again, parents, you don't have to have the answer, but you will be very surprised at the things they tell you. And then you just say, interesting, tell me more.
Yeah.
So, what is money and where does it come from? And tell me more. And you are off the hook for dinner tonight.
All right, that's the dinner time conversation. Julia, it is always a pleasure to spend time with you and time and space with you. I love it. And every time I come away, I'm like, okay, now we need like another like session to go in. And so if you want more Dr. Julia Myers in your life, go listen to her podcast, subscribe, check out her TED Talks. I know she's on a mission to get 1 million, and I'm supporting you as best I can in that. And where, I know I'll put it in the show notes, but where can people find you? Where are we directing people to find you?
Yes, so all of my resources are centralized on my website, juliamyers.com. And I spell it the East Coast way. So Julia, MYERS.com. And a free gift if you are listening and you are just like caught in the moment, completely off guard by when your kids say the darndest things. I have put together a resource, age grouped. So if they're younger and they don't have the spice of a 16-year-old yet, and as they get a little bit older, I have learned all of these from experience. And it's called Say This, Not That.
Ooh.
For the moments that catch you off guard. And I would love to gift that to you listening, because this is great when we can be in this calm state, when we can be engaged and I want to learn and I want to pour into my kids. And then all of a sudden they just are like, give you that question.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't gotten it yet, Katie, you will. Are we rich? Just complete straight face. Are we rich? I'm going to tell you how to answer that. What to say and what not to say.
I love it.
I learned it the hard way in this free resource at juliamyers.com. Thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Julia Myers. I greatly appreciate you. And I am excited to dig into all those resources myself with my family and my kids. So thank you so much. And until next time, thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you. And remember, wealth without wisdom is wasted.
Julia, 2 conversations in, and we still have not run out of runway. That is a sign of someone who's doing some serious, important work. If you're building a legacy for your family, not just a balance sheet, a real legacy, Julia is the person to call. Her TED Talk drops later this year. Get on her launch team now. The links are going to be in the show notes. And if you want to make sure that you are having the conversations with your family and you know what to say, I'm going to drop Julia's free resource in the show notes. Make sure you check it out. And if you know some lady who is struggling to have these conversations and to get the conversation out, please share this episode with her. And sharing is caring, and sharing those opportunities to have those tough conversations and how to get through it. Thank you for joining me on Real Talk with Katie Kim. Until then, let's go. Before we wrap up, if someone in your world needs this conversation, a founder who's carrying a lot and ready for clarity, send this episode to her. These messages land deeper when we share them. And if you're in that space where you know your business can grow, you feel the potential, but the next strategic step isn't fully clear yet, let's talk. You don't need a new identity. You don't need to force a direction. You just need clarity that's aligned with your goals, your numbers, and the life you want to lead. I invite you to book a call with my team. We'll look at where you are, identify the real leverage points, and map the smartest next move, whether that's one of our free resources, a workshop, or deeper support. Clarity creates momentum. Let's get yours. Let's go. The information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not legal advice. It's not financial advice. It's not investment advice. Real estate development, like any investment, carries risk. Before you make decisions, you should always consult a licensed professional, your attorney, your CPA, or your financial advisor, to name a few, to make sure you're making the right choice for your situation. I'm here to share insights and strategy, but you're responsible for your own decisions, and each situation is unique. So make sure you contact your professional team to give you your specific guidance for your specific case, as each real estate development's different and unique and has its own challenges and opportunities.